Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 36. Today, we will basically continue planning the second construction hub, and not gonna lie, it will take a bit longer than anticipated. We will spend a lot of time fighting with collision boxes, but in the end it will all be worth it. We will manage to squeeze in everything important, including that triple helipad for the concrete plant. But the main struggle will be the roads. We are working in very tight spaces, so it will take some coercion to make them work. Let's get a couple small tasks out of the way before we continue with the hub. Some of you noticed that one of the signals at the distribution branch was backwards, so that had to be fixed as soon as possible. Then how about we give the blue track layer the rusty texture? It's been a couple years since it's been in service, so let's use the skin that reflects the age of the machine. And last, I've been sitting on this for a little while, since I kept forgetting about it. We should name the tunnel digger too. And since we're doing celestial names for them this time, you guys suggested brown dwarf. Anyways, let's get back into it. The coastal railroad is about to reach the end of the line, which will make it quicker to connect it to the new construction yard. First, we need to add a gravel loading station for trucks. I forgot to mention it at the end of the last episode, but it was definitely on the list of things to do. Then there's the question of the two remaining storages. I tried to make sure the connection points are correct. We need to use all three, so we better be sure to make it all work. Okay, it's a bit cramped. Maybe we should start with the helipad, so we can ensure that the railroad connection can be routed freely. Still not quite right. We need a bit more room, so we need to extend the build area a bit more. That should do it. We have a bit more space for the tracks to go through now. This space between the gravel station and the rest of the hub seems like a good place to route the tracks. Next, we need the warehouse. Apart from a bit of reorganization, this is the last storage building we need for this area. I wasn't sure if we could squeeze both tracks under that conveyor belt, so I looked for an alternative route for a second, but ultimately, we will manage to make it work. Also, to prevent a bump, we should make the road a bit steeper. Never thought I would say that. There we go. Both tracks will fit under there. That is pretty much it for the storages. We will need to move the dry bulk silo in a second, but for now, this is it. Let's take care of the main rail switch. This is the usual double to triple track junction we've been using. It's a feeble attempt, but let's see if we can smooth out any of these slopes, now that the buildings and roads are in place. The answer is no. Next, let's try to deal with the concrete plant's landing pad. Right now, it's a single, but for maximum efficiency, we should try to convert it to a triple helipad. This is the only reasonable position. It will be extremely tight, but we can make it work, I think. All that's left is to replace the dry bulk storage. Fair warning, this will be a very fiddly process. But for the sake of efficiency, it has to be done. We only really need to ensure that the storage has a direct connection to the drop-off station. That will allow proper operations with a distribution office. After that, we can safely use conveyor towers to finish the connection between the silo and the concrete plant. I suppose we could make it face this way too. Here comes the fiddly part. There is very little room here, so we will need to move the helipad a little. There's no way we can squeeze the road through those pillars. There is a bit more room near the tracks. Let's hope it's enough. Looks promising. Not quite there yet. Let's give another try. If we make the conveyor longer, we should have more room for the road. Now the railroad prevents it from working. But as we've learned, There is a chance that we can make it work, if we build the conveyor first, and then build the rails under it. There we go. Now we're getting somewhere. The curve is a bit awkward, but I'll allow it, given the circumstances. Now we just need to somehow deal with the roads. Okay, that conveyor tower is facing the wrong way. Let's give it another try. Now we know how to make it work, so it shouldn't take long. There we go. One step closer to the finish line. And we have a bit of a traffic situation developing near the second bus station. It looks okay at the moment, apart from the queue forming at the end station, but it will get much worse later, but it will be an easy fix overall. Next, we need to find a way for all these roads to get out of this bowl of spaghetti, and somehow connect up to the road network. I think we will have two entrances to this place, and we should have the offices just below the gravel station. This is where I got a bit too confident with the completeness of this place, and decided to send the machines home. It will be a small mistake, since we will need them around for other jobs later. But in my defense, the offices were definitely in the way, so they had to be moved either way. Yeah, I think just below the aggregate station is where we will place the construction offices. Now, we've been using those vanilla looking ones so far, but Rob made some too, including the 32 parking lot version, so let's give that a try. Two should be more than enough. Now come the helicopter offices. Lining them up was a bit harder than usual. Since we are not aligned to the grid, I cannot use that as a measuring tool, so I had to rely on doing it by eye. And this is where it became obvious to me that dismissing those machines early was a bit too hasty on my part. We will absolutely need them back to deal with all these slopes. Especially this one. We need to bring the rail tracks up to the plateau, and those yellow contour lines tell me that the current slope is way too steep. Going through this little valley seems like the most obvious way up, so let's just use it. I might redo that junction in the next episode. It's a bit too big for a singular junction, but too small to break it up with Q blocks. Also, we have a lot of room there, so I might go ahead and build one with some overpasses for continuous traffic flow. Haven't decided yet, but if we have room before we build more things in the area, might as well take advantage of it now. Let's just consider it a placeholder. Not sure if this is the final road layout yet. I just had the crazy idea of making the road going through the hub into a one-way street. The problem with it is that it would need to be clockwise to be as efficient as possible, but normally traffic should flow counterclockwise. Basically, trucks leave the offices, go into the hub to load up, and then leave on the upper road, and when they come back, they would use the lower road. And that would turn this hub into a left-hand drive area. Not sure if I can handle that kind of break from uniformity. Next, we need a bus stop. Once we no longer rely on foreign workers, we will need some place to bring in the local residents to operate the asphalt and concrete plants. Another thing we need is a passenger train station. The thing about this place is that we only need people for the 2 production facilities, and they only need a handful of workers per shift. Even the smallest possible train we could use is too big for that. So this station will have to be a temporary facility, and we will only keep it around while we rely on foreign workers, until we have people living nearby. Finding a place for this station was a bit challenging. My first thought was to squeeze it in here, thinking that maybe I can hook the track up to the open storage's tracks. But of course, there was no way I could do it with so many roads in the way. At least it was a good excuse to redo the local roads. They were a bit of a mess before. Well, this isn't much better. Since it will be a temporary station, I suppose we could just put it here, and use the bitumen station as a branching off point. And the traffic just got a lot worse at the second bus station. What we need to do is merge the intersections into one, and set up some proper road signs, so everyone knows what to do. Okay, let's give it some time, and see if this setup will work or not. The fact that the jam immediately cleared up tells me that we are on the right track. I checked on the reach of the passenger station at the hub, and right now, the concrete plant is out of reach. But no need to worry, once the roads are all gravel, it will be fine. In fact, I suspect the only reason why it is out of range is because the unfinished bus stop is in the way. Anyways, looking at the roads as I was setting them up for the gravel upgrade, I noticed that a single piece is missing, between the asphalt plant and the warehouse helipad. To allow proper traffic flow through the place, we will need to include that too. Otherwise, it looks like it just might work. Now, this is where it became obvious that we cannot progress further without bringing back the machines. So let's place down another outpost for them. At this moment, I didn't want to keep them there for too long, so I won't bother building a fuel station. Let's just select the bulldozers with the most fuel, and send those. Oops, wrong button. Another mistake was that I didn't consider the importance of excavators. I forgot that they are the ones that can work on yellow ghost images. Oh well. I will mess around with the bulldozers for this episode, and I will build a proper outpost in the next one, so we can do the job properly. Anyways, to pass the time, how about we lay down a pattern for this area? It's been sitting empty for quite a while. And we just got the notification that the original tracks on the coastal railroad are all done. Sure, we just added to it with a new junction, but that's beside the point. We should also tell the RCO to start building the second lane. It's out of reach for automatic assignments, so we need to do it manually. Oh, the bulldozers are already here. Good. Sadly, working on such a tall and steep incline is a bit too much for a smoothing tool. And this is where I realized that I really should have brought in the excavators. As I've said, I will mess around with the bulldozers for the rest of this episode, since I recorded the footage pretty late, and I didn't realize that I still had quite a bit of time before the timer was up at this point. I really should have just brought them in now. Anyways, the current outpost is too far away for them to reach the slope at the end of that small valley. We need them to be a bit closer. While they move themselves over, how about we finish partitioning this area? Yeah, this will do just fine. And the traffic seemed to have subsided at the new station, but the amount of workers waiting is way too high. I won't deal with that today, but we really need to start increasing the frequency of the buses going there. I did attempt to make these slopes a bit gentler by only using the bulldozers, but it's a fool's errand. We really need access to the excavators to do a proper job. Oh, right. Now that we have the junction there at the end, the entire coastal railroad just became a single block. We need to add some extra signals to prevent excessive waiting times. To be fully efficient, we should also add a construction crossing, but that is not critical at the moment. But it will become necessary fairly soon. Well, If we carry on doing this, we are just wasting fuel for very little to show for it. Let's just plop down some placeholder roads, and deal with the slopes in the next episode, once we have the proper machinery available. Yeah, it's a bit steeper than I would have liked. And if it's too steep for roads, it's definitely too steep for rail. But just so we know where we will need to make adjustments, let's place the tracks now, so we can see the problematic areas. You know, it's not as egregious as I expected, but we can absolutely do better than this. Also, how about we make this turn a bit gentler? So yeah, once we have excavators in the area, we will deal with these slopes. For roads, anything on white lines I'm okay with, but I'm more picky about rails. Anyways, now this outpost is in the way, so let's move them back up the ramp. We will definitely need to use the excavators here. There is no way I would approve that kind of a slope. Again, we will place all the roads now, and bring in the proper machinery in the next episode. I just want to see where we need to make adjustments. Might as well connect up to the proper roads now. I will most likely smooth out this slope too. I seem to be getting more and more picky about these as the series goes along. I remember not being this bothered about road slopes when I was building that long highway going up the mountainside to the bauxite area. I guess it's a good and bad thing. It's good, since the end result will look nicer, but it's also bad, since we need to fight the very temperamental roads the game gives us. And I have no idea why I sent these guys back to Kirkimov. There was no need to get rid of them. We will need them around later. I guess I was just getting a bit tired at this point, and didn't pay attention to what I was doing. Oh well, at least now we know what we need to change. We have to build another proper construction outpost anyways, so it's not exactly a big deal that those bulldozers went home. To finish things off, let's give the construction hub its own name tag. And that's it for this episode. As I've said so many times, we will need to bring in the excavators to deal with the slopes around this area. Then we still need to add power to the hub, which means we need to build a long high voltage line over the mountain. Good thing we have the power plant right next to it, so it shouldn't be a long one. But what we will definitely need to deal with is the buses. We just added a lot of new residents to Estergrad, so we need to put everyone to work. Anyways, thank you for watching. If you liked the video, then leaving a like and subscribing to the channel just might motivate me to make more. If you are more in the donating mood, you can find a link to my Ko-fi page in the description, where you can buy me a glass of water. I don't really drink coffee. Thank you for your support, and until next time, I will see you later.